Hello everyone, welcome back to Biophilia, your all-time study mate. Today we are going to start a new chapter about neural control and coordination. This would be our first part about the peripheral nervous system. So don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our amazing channel if you like this video and get some help about it. So without wasting any more time, let's jump into the topic. So first of all, as our topic is about the neural system and its coordination, so we need to understand about what its fundamental and structural unit. So structural and fundamental unit of the nervous system is going to be the neuron. So everyone needs to be very specific about to know what is neuron. So neurons are nothing but going to be the microscopic structures, and these are so small microscopic structures, but still these are going to be what? These are the structural and the functional units. They say the body has its structural and functional unit as the cell. So this is neuron is also a cell जो neural system का structural and functional unit बनता है. So you might think that this microscopic structure, how many these numbers can be. So if you are thinking then about your brain, which is going to be the central part of your nervous system. So brain जैसे चीज में भी you might have imagined how big the brain is going to be. So how many neurons can you imagine that the brain is constituted of? So for your information, you can say that the brain is going to have about 100 billion cells. Now 100 billion, what are these cells? These are nothing but 100 billion neurons. So these many neurons are nothing but 10 raised to the power 10. So you can imagine how small these microscopic structures are going to be, and these are going to be the connecting electric wires you can think of, जो पूरी बॉडी को गवर्न करने में हेल्प करेंगे. So what is this microscopic structure? What are the parts? How does it work? Everything is going to be studied under this chapter. So first of all, let's get familiar with the parts of the neuron so that the terms that comes over here are very much familiar to you and you do not get confused what are those. So first of all, the major central part of the neuron is going to be the cell body. So cell body, जैसे हर सेल का एक मेजर पार्ट होता है, एक सेल के अंदर साइटोप्लाज्म होता है, एक सेल मेम्ब्रेन होती है. Similarly, neuron is also going to have all those things, but this looks a bit different than a normal cell. But why does it? Because it has its special functions. So because of the special functions, the shape is going to change, but the constituents remains the same. So as normal cell has a cell body, it also has a cell body जहाँ पे सारे organelles होंगे. It is going to have mitochondria. It also has a nucleus which is going to be the control room of the cell. Everything is going to be present along with the cell membrane as well. So cell body is going to be the organizing unit, and it is going to organize and keep the entire cell functional because of the having of the cell organelle. वो सब कर पाएगा. Additional, that is different than the other cells, it is going to have the presence of nasal bodies. Now what are these nasal bodies? These nasal bodies are nothing but you can speak about like these are ribosomes. जैसे राइबोसोम्स होते हैं that help in protein synthesis, जैसे protein synthesis में for the cell body and the dendrites, this is going to help for the protein synthesis. So you can think about that nasal bodies are some sort of ribosomes, just to remember about. So these nasal bodies are going to be present in the cell bodies as well as they will be present in the dendrites. Now what are dendrites? Dendrites are going to be the small little extensions from the cell body, और ये extensions जैसे root system होता है, as the plant has roots, similarly these dendrites look like those root systems that they are branching from each other and form a big network. So these dendrites are going to be responsible for receiving the signals. यानी यहाँ पे एक dendrite होगा. So these dendrites are going to collect signal from where? From the previous axon. So previous axon जो भी होगा वहाँ से ये information collect करेंगे and they will pass on to the next neuron. So that is their function of receiving the signals. So once the signal has been received from the dendrite, it will come to the cell body. From the cell body, it will go to the next structure that is called as the axon hillock. Axon hillock, that is the place wherein the impulse is going to be generated. यानी जो information previous neurons से या previous part of the cell से आई है, that is going to be again regenerated. It will be repowered so that the signal can transmit from that neuron to the next one again. So cell axon hillock से वो next part में जाएगा, that is axon. So axon will be a transferring signal part, and this axon is also called as the nerve fiber. जैसे electric wires होती है, similarly there is going to be axon which is going to be the major part of the neuron. जो सबसे ज्यादा लंबा दिखाई देगा, that longest part is going to be nothing but the axon or the nerve fiber. The axon is also going to have cytoplasm in it. It is also an extension of the cell. It also has cytoplasm. So you can say the cytoplasm of the axon is going to have a special name. Now what is the special name for the cytoplasm of axon? It is going to be nothing but axoplasm. What is it? It is the axoplasm that is inside the axon. So this axoplasm is going to have a structure that is called as synaptic vesicles. What is it? It is the synaptic vesicles, and these synaptic vesicles have special content in them, and that special content is nothing but the neurotransmitter. And these neurotransmitters are the chemicals which help to transmit signals from one axon to the next dendrite. So you might have heard about in previous classes कि वहाँ पे एक synapse form होता है. So synapse word is not new for you, but that synapse is nothing but where the neurotransmitter is going to come into action. So after seeing about the axon, axon के ऊपर you are going to see some big bulging out there. So that bulging is nothing but for the myelin sheath. This myelin sheath is going to act like insulation tape. जैसे insulation tape होती है, आपको current नहीं feel होता है. Similarly, there is no going to be wastage of that impulse, and it is going to increase the speed of the original signal. And there are some places wherein the myelin sheath is absent, and the place where the myelin sheath is absent, there is formation of node of Ranvier. So node of Ranvier is going to allow the diffusion of ions. So there are ions like potassium ion, there is ions of potassium and sodium. So the ions need to diffuse, and from that place the node of Ranvier can help for that thing. There are some cells in the myelin sheath nearby. Those are called as Schwann cells, and these Schwann cells are going to be the cells responsible for production of the myelin sheath. Finally, at the end of the neuron, you are going to find the axon terminals, and these axon terminals are going to form the junctions with the next cell. So this is part 1 of the neuron. So second neuron will be just adjacent to it, और axon terminal किसके साथ junction बनाएगा. So the junction can be either formed with the dendrites of the next body, or it can also form, say for example, with muscles, or it can also form with some other organs as well, right? So that is the part of neurons, and this neuron is going to be the major part, the whole and soul for the entire neural system. So you need to know about these and some differences that come across for each other part in the neural system that will also be studied over here. So what are the different types of axons? Axons dekha, it is the longest part, the major part of the neuron, which is going to be having also a name of nerve fiber. So based on the presence or absence of myelin sheath, there are going to be different types of axons. So myelin sheath कौन produce कर रहा था? It was produced by the cells which have a special name. What is the name? It is nothing but the Schwann cells. So these Schwann cells are going to produce the myelin sheath. So if it is present, if they are producing myelin sheath, then the axons are called as myelinated axons. Otherwise, they are called as non-myelinated axons. So myelinated जिसको myelin sheath है, जिसको insulation tape से wrap किया गया है, that is going to be the spinal cord and the cranial nerves. So these are going to be the places wherein there are many axons moving around. So जैसे बहुत ज़्यादा इलेक्ट्रिक का गुच्छा है, बहुत सारे वायर्स जा रहे हैं, so you don't want that short circuit should happen. So similar thing, what do you do for preventing short circuit? You provide some insulation, you provide some plastic coating onto that wire. Same thing is nothing but the function of myelin sheath. So जहाँ पे बहुत ज़्यादा information pass हो रही है, there are many impulses going on. For the case of spinal or cranial nerves, you are going to provide that insulation covering of the myelin sheath. The next we see that what is this myelin sheath that we are speaking about again and again. So myelin sheath is a lipid rich sheath, that is, it is made up of fat, and since it is fat rich, there is no electric impulses that is going to go through it. So it is just like a plastic insulation tape which will be spirally wrapping around the axons, which is produced by the Schwann cells. We have discussed it. So बहुत लेयर पे लेयर थर के ऊपर थर जमती जाती है, जैसे ऑनियन rings होती है. Similarly, the myelin sheath is going to be produced by the Schwann cells. They act as biological insulation, and since the myelin sheath is not continuous, there are some places, there are some gaps, and those gaps are nothing but called as nodes of Ranvier. So we had also discussed why these nodes of Ranvier are important, because these are going to be for the ion exchange. So whatever the ions needs to be exchanged, this is the place where the ions can get exchanged. So non-myelinated axons, as you can understand, this is going to be the opposite case. So these are not going to be producing myelin sheath, but instead of myelin sheath, what they will have, they are going to have neurolemma. So instead of myelin sheath, neurolemma will be found. So neurolemma is very well important for the PNS, that is peripheral neural system. So we'll study about that as well. So neurolemma is not found in the axons of central nervous system, यानी spinal cord या brain के related चीजों में you will not find neurolemma. So there is no biological electrical insulation because there is no myelin sheath. Myelin sheath नहीं होने की वजह से there are no gaps, so no rods of Ranvier as well. These are found in the autonomous and the somatic neural system, which is going to be a part of PNS, that is peripheral neural system. So here you can find the difference in the GIF that is very well shown to you. So the first one is the part which is myelinated. So here you have the myelin sheath, and because of myelination you can see the blue color dot that flows very quickly because of the myelin sheath present, whereas the non-myelinated scene is going to have the impulse in the blue going very slowly. So this is the difference that you need to understand between the myelinated and the non-myelinated axons. The next we see is the types of neurons. So types of neurons is on the basis of the number of axons and the number of dendrites. So dendrite हमने देखा था, it was at the start of the neuron, whereas one of the dendrite that extends a long way is going to form the axon. So based on how many dendrites and axons, for example, if there is only one of them, so you call it a unipolar. So if the cell body is having only a axon, there is no dendrites, dendrites are absent, then in that case, what do you call that particular neuron? You call it the unipolar neuron. That means dendrites are absent, and such kind of neurons are only seen in the embryonic stage. After the birth, these neurons are not found. The second type of neuron is bipolar. So bi is the word that is related to two. So what two things are present? One is going to be a cell body. Cell body ka extension will be one axon. So one axon unipolar, but since it is bipolar, you will also have one dendrite present onto it. And such bipolar neurons can be seen in the retina layer of the eye. So retina you will also see in detail in this chapter in few videos ahead. So you can remember till now bipolar neurons found in the retina of the eye. The next is multipolar. That means there might be many dendrites and one axon. So same thing, that is one axon because axon remains only one always. And whatever the number increases is the number increased in the dendrites. So such multipolar neurons are found in the cerebral cortex. Cerebral cortex is related to the brain because as you know brain is the area जहाँ पे बहुत ज़्यादा processing होती है. There are many areas from which information needs to be gathered, many information needs to be received. So receiving का काम कौन करता है? Receiving का काम करता है dendrites. So when there are many dendrites from many different areas, the information can be collected, it can be gathered onto the cell body, and it can be passed on with the single axon. So that is the function of the multipolar neurons. And the last one is the pseudo-unipolar. That means the word pseudo is related to false. Now, why is it false unipolar? Because it is going to have a cell body which is going to have a branching axon. यानी उसके पास उसका खुद का कोई axon नहीं होगा, but it is going to lie around one axon, and such kinds of pseudo-unipolar neurons can be found onto the neurons of dorsal root of spinal cord. So what are these dorsal roots of spinal cord? You will understand in a few minutes of this video. So that will be helping you to understand about what are pseudo-unipolar neurons. So difference of the structures, how do they look, is represented here by the diagram. You can very well go through the understanding between how many dendrites, how many axons, everything is going to be represented by this little diagram. Moving ahead to understand some special cells of around the neurons. Neurons अकेले नहीं होते हैं. Neurons, though they are the majority of the cells that belong to the neural system, but they cannot be the single ones to perform. There are many other special cells that also help in the neural system. So there are going to be 5 cells. So first one is going to be the glial cells. So what are these glial cells? These are the cells that are called as special companion cells. These are surrounding the neurons. जैसे neurons के best friends हो. So these are going to help in the housekeeping functions. So whatever, जैसे आप hotel room में जाते हो, so once you check in, after some time you roam around and you give the key of the room to the housekeeping staff. What do? They are going to clean your room. Everything is set aside, everything kept nice and clean. So that is the same work of the glial cells. पूरे के पूरे न्यूरॉन को अच्छे से सही सलामत रखना, whatever is needed to be provided to the neurons, collecting the things that is needed and supplying them, all that thing will be done by the glial cells. The second ones are going to be the astrocytes. So these astrocytes are going to be star-shaped, cells, and these are going to provide nutritional support. So whatever is needed for the eating purposes, or you can say whatever is needed for the nutritional support, everything will be provided by the astrocytes. Then the third type of cells are going to be the microglia. Micro are the cells which are going to act like the scavenger cells, or you can say they are the phagocytic cells. यानी वो जो भी waste products होंगे, that will be eaten up or they will be gathered along and being consumed by the microglia. So microglia को जो भी सफाई का काम है, whatever the waste product needs to be thrown away, that will be done by the microglia cells. The next ones are going to be the oligodendrocytes. These oligodendrocytes are going to be providing the insulation. That is, whatever the myelin sheath needs to be, formed in the CNS is going to be done by the oligodendrocytes. And in the PNS, there is going to be Schwann cells. Now, what are these Schwann cells? We are very well known to these Schwann cells. These are also called as neurolemmocytes, and these are the different type of glial cells which are going to wrap around the axons of the neurons, forming the myelin sheath. Right, so the difference needs to be remembered. CNS में कौन से cells होते हैं? There are oligodendrocytes, whereas in PNS you are going to find the Schwann cells. So these are the 5 different cells which are going to be surrounding the neurons. So here in the figure it is very well described to you, the yellow ones being the neurons, and besides the neurons there are many different cells like the Schwann cells, oligodendrocytes, microglia cells, the astrocytes. These all will be accompanying the neurons so that they can function normally. Now we are at the stage wherein we have understood the structural and the functional unit very well. So ये एक single unit था. Now many neuron come together along with the special cells. These are going to form the human neural system. Now human neural system, to study in a better way, we are going to divide it into 2 different parts. So the first one is going to be called as the central nervous system. That is going to be in the center as the name suggests, whereas the second one is going to be peripheral. So peripheral के नाम से you can understand ये अलग अलग sides में जाएगा. So it can take diversions from the central part of the body and reach the extremities of your body. So central nervous system जो होता है, it is going to, as the name, going to lie at the central axis of the body. So central axis में कौन से parts होंगे? You are going to have the brain and the spinal cord, which is going to constitute the CNS of the body, and this is going to be the place wherein all the information that can be either external or internal information is going to be received from various sensory receptors. So it can be either some taste, some noise, or you can say something that you see, or the time you are hearing me right now. All that information is going to reach to the brain, or it is reaching to the spinal cord, and it can reach to both of them. And there is going to be processing of this information. So all the processing sites, जैसे you call the brain the CPU of your body. So CPU क्या करता है? कंप्यूटर का जो भी information है that is coming from the mouse, the keyboard. So mouse, keyboards are the windows, or you can say these are the input systems. जो भी processing है that happens in the CPU, and the output is shown onto the screen. So same way the brain and the spinal cords are going to act like CPU, where the processing of the information is going to occur. The next part of it is the peripheral neural system, wherein there is going to be lying at the peripheries of the body, and all the nerves, यानी जो भी तारे है, जो भी electrical connections है to rest of the body, is going to come under the peripheral neural system. So brain और spinal cord को छोड़ के बाकी जो भी आएगा, everything comes under the peripheral neural system. So for this video, we will be discussing in detail about the peripheral neural system. The next part would be about the central neural system. So now we are at the place where we can see the different nerve fibers, because we are discussing about the peripheral neural system. Peripheral neural system का major part क्या होता है? The nerve fibers. So these nerve fibers are going to be of 2 types. So first one is going to be the afferent ones. The second one are the efferent ones. So efferent fibers क्या होते हैं? You can remember the term E is for exit. So exit यानी बाहर जा रहे हैं. So these are leaving. So these are going to leave the body. They are going away from the place, whereas afferent are going to come towards. So here these afferent fibers are also called as the sensory nerve fibers, because these will be coming towards the CNS, or you can say these are going to transmit impulses from the organs, and they will go towards the CNS, that is central nervous system. These will carry sensory information because these are called as sensory nerve fibers. And once they, send all the information to the CNS, CNS is going to, process the information and it will respond and control the body accordingly. So बीच में समझो, बीच में here is your CNS. So यहाँ पे बैठा है big boss, right? The parts that is coming towards the CNS comes under the afferent fibers, और afferent fibers जब information send कर देंगे to the big boss, that is the CNS. Now the CNS needs to send its information so that the body can function properly. So जो functioning का part होगा, जो signal वापस send करना है, जो बॉडी के पास जाएगा, बॉडी के पास जाने वाला फाइबर्स होंगे द इफरेंट फाइबर्स. सो इट इज अ वेरी सिंपल पाथवे. जो बॉडी से आ रहा है दैट इज गोइंग टू बी एफरेंट, और इंस्टेड ऑफ सेइंग बॉडी से यू कैन कॉल देम एज इट इज कमिंग फ्रॉम द सेंस ऑर्गन्स. So majorly sense organs are only going to send the signals of sensory impulses. So sense organs से जो CNS के पास आएगा, that is afferent, and from CNS that is going towards the body, or you can say it is going towards the effector cells or effector organs. These are going to be the afferent fibers. So these are also called as motor nerve fibers, and these motor nerve fibers are going to transmit the information from the CNS to the concerned peripheral tissues or the organs. These are going to have regulatory information, whereas the afferent ones are going to carry the sensory information. So differences needs to be understood. These are carrying to the CNS, whereas afferent are carrying away from the CNS. These are called as sensory. The other ones are called as motor nerve fibers. So here is a little diagram that will help you to understand. The blue one is coming from the skin. So skin is one of the sense organs. Sense organs से कौन जा रहा है? The afferent fibers are going. They are going to the here we are seeing about the spinal cord. So spinal cord is going to be having a interneuron जहाँ पे सब processing होगी, and after the processing the efferent fibers are going to be responsible to go and act onto the muscles, and the muscles will show some activities to the responding sensory information. So that is the entire thing that happens with the help of afferent and the efferent fibers. The next we need to see are the different types of nerves. इसके पहले जो देखा we saw different types of nerve fibers, but now here the fibers are going to come together and form nerves. So जैसे एक कॉपर की वायर को अगर you remove the insulation tape, you're going to see many thin wires are coiled around each other, and then a big wire is found. So that is the same way many nerve fibers come together and form a nerve. So there are different types of nerves. So one of the type we study here at the first moment, that is the cranial nerves. So cranial word जो है, this cranial word is related to the brain, or you can say it is related to the cranium. So cranium is nothing but the skull, and that is nothing but the brain. So about cranial nerves, there are going to be 12 pairs of cranial nerves. Very important to understand, there are 12 pairs, right? Because we have left and right body parts. So there are going to be paired in structure, and these will leave the cranium through a foramina, or you can say through a hole onto the skull, and that foramina is going to be innervating the head region. So cranial nerves will only be signaling to the head region, and because of the head region these are also called as cranial nerves. The next we see what are these 12 pairs. So 12 pairs के नाम पता होने चाहिए, उनका origin, you can think of it, what is the nature of it. So as in the previous one we saw what are the types of nerve fibers, either they are sensory, either they are motor, or they are both kinds. So if they are both, then you call them as mixed fibers. And what is the function of that respective cranial nerve? So here we are going to see in detail about them. So the first cranial nerve number 1, is going to be named as olfactory nerve. Now olfactory is the term that is related to the nose. So nose hai, so what can you think of? The function is going to be smelling. So whatever the sensory receptors are going to be present in your nose, those are going to send signals to the CNS. So अभी नोज तो कोई इफेक्ट नहीं करता है, it is just going to collect information. So collecting information is the work of sensory nerve fiber. So the nature of the cranial nerve is going to be sensory. And from where is it going to originate? It is going to start from the olfactory lobe. The next cranial nerve is the optic nerve. Now optic is the word that is related to the eyes. So the eyes are again going to be sensory, which is related to the sight, that is you can call them as vision, and it is going to start from the optic lobe. Now these all origins are going to be in and around the brain because we are seeing about the cranial nerves. The third one is going to be oculomotor nerve. So oculomotor is again related to the eye, and it is going to originate from the floor of the midbrain. It is a motor nerve, that means it is going to react to the signals that is going to be sent by the CNS. So अभी तक जो ऊपर के दो देखे, these were sensory, these were receiving signals from the external environment and letting the CNS know. But now the next we see that is a third cranial nerve. It is going to bring information from the CNS so that the functions can be followed. So what are the functions that can be given? The movements of the eyeball. So अगर आपने कुछ चीजें देखी है, if you don't want to see, you want to go left and right, you want to see. So what that is going to be done is going to be because of the signals that come from the oculomotor nerve. So the movement of the eyeball, the movement of the iris. So अगर आपने बहुत ज्यादा bright light देख ली है, headlights आपके आंखों पे गिर रहे, so your iris, your pupil tends to get smaller in size so that the light entering into your eyes is lesser. So that iris movements is going to be regulated by the oculomotor nerve. अगर आपके सामने जोर से कोई बॉल फेंक रहा है, कोई आके आपको थप्पड़ मारने की इच्छा कर रहा है, so the movements of the hands or the movement of the incoming ball, because of that your eyelids close so that they protect your eyes. That is also a function of the oculomotor nerve. The fourth nerve is the trochlear nerve, which is coming from the floor of the midbrain. Again, it is a motor nerve and it is going to be responsible for the rotation of the eyeball. So जैसे योगा करते टाइम आपको बोला जाता है आंखों को 360 डिग्री गोल गोल घुमाओ. So that eyeball movement is because of the fourth cranial nerve, that is trochlear nerve. The fifth cranial nerve is called as trigeminal nerve. This trigeminal nerve is going to be also called as the dentist's nerve. So this is a little thing that you can, relate. So dentist's nerve, because dentists are generally going to, जो anesthesia देते हैं during your different procedures of the dentist. This nerve is going to be generally, soothing effect लाने के लिए, because this nerve is going to be innervating or sending impulses nearby your forehead, the scalp, the upper eyelid, the side of the nose. The teeth are involved, so the dentist nerve, the movements of the tongue, the jaw muscles, everything is going to be controlled by the trigeminal nerve. And the reason you can think of now, why is it called a dentist's nerve? So it is a mixed nerve, यानी उसको sensory information भी है, because there is going to be tongue involved into it, the side of the nose is involved, so it is having some sensory part, as well as the muscles are involved, that is jaw muscles are involved, the movements of the tongue is involved, so it is also a motor nerve. So when both are present, you call it a mixed nerve. So the sixth is going to be the abducens nerve, which is originating from the pons. Again, it is a motor nerve. That means it is sending signals from the CNS for the rotation of the eyeball. So rotation of the eyeball के लिए you have two nerves, that is trochlear as well as the abducens. nerves. The next is going to be the seventh cranial nerve, that is the facial nerve. This facial nerve originating again from the pons, which is a mixed nerve, that is sensory plus motor. It is going to be responsible for the taste. जो taste part है, it is going to be the sensory, whereas for the motor part, it is going to be the facial expressions, chewing and movement of the neck. The eighth one is the auditory nerve. Auditory is related to the ear, and it is also called as acoustic nerve, or it is also called as vestibulocochlear nerve. So there are two other names to the eighth cranial nerve. It is originating from the pons. It is the sensory nerve and sensory ear sense organ. So it is for hearing as well as equilibrium. So equilibrium यानी जो balance maintain करना होता है. So once you are going on to say moving bus ने अचानक से ब्रेक लगा दी and you are standing, so you don't want to fall down. So that thing is going to be because of the auditory nerve, which is sending signals to your brain that your body is moving to the left, so you balance it out and so that the body doesn't fall down. That is because of the eighth cranial nerve. The ninth cranial nerve is glossopharyngeal nerve. Glossopharyngeal nerve is related to the mixed nerve, that is sensory as well as the motor nerve, which is for the taste and touch. So taste के लिए glosso word है. Glosso is going to be related to the tongue, and that taste and touch is going to be the sensory part, whereas movements of pharynx for swallowing is going to be the motor part. 10th is going to be the vagus nerve. Vagus nerve is one of the very important nerves regarding the entire cranial nerves, because vagus nerve, if this nerve is going to be destroyed or if there is some damage to the vagus nerve, the person can die. Now why the person can die? Because whatever the signals have been sent by the vagus nerve, or whatever the signals are being send to the CNS, these are going to be very important. So what are the functions? Let us understand. That will help you to know why is it important. So vocal cords, whatever you are speaking is because of the vagus nerve. The lungs, the respiratory reflexes, the peristalsis, आपका swallowing है, आपकी speech है, your secretion of the digestive gases, the heartbeat monitoring, everything is going to be because of the vagus nerve. So very important to body controls are going to be under this, that is your respiratory system, यानी आपके lungs आ गए, and the other one is your heart, and even one of the part that is the digestive system. So three systems are involved because of the vagus nerve. That makes it the very important nerve from the cranial nerves aspect. The 11th one is going to be the spinal accessory nerve, which is a motor nerve, and it is going to be functioning for the muscles of pharynx, larynx, neck, shoulder movement. The last 12th one is going to be hypoglossal nerve, which is again a motor nerve, and hypoglossal, so word again glossal comes. Glossal is related to the tongue, so the movements of the tongue is going to be followed by the 12th cranial nerve. So अभी तक हमने देखा that there are going to be different types of nature of the nerves. So sensory nerves होते हैं, and along with sensory we have seen that there are motor nerves as well, and sometimes there are mixed nerves, that is they are sensory as well as motor. So what are the cranial nerves? What are the numbers that come under sensory? So sensory nerves के लिए you have cranial nerve number 1, 2 and 8. For motor nerves, you are going to have number 3, 4, 6, 11 and 12. And the mixed nerves are going to be cranial nerve number 5, 7, 9 as well as 10. So this is a little summary that will help you to remember. Sensories 1 to 8, motor 3, 4, 6, 11 and 12, and mixed nerves are going to be 5, 7, 9 and 10. So that brings to the end of the discussion for the cranial nerves. The next we see is the spinal nerves. So जैसे cranial nerves we had 12 pairs. Here the spinal nerves are going to be 31 pairs. So these 31 pairs are for the man. As the animal changes, the number of these spinal nerves will also change. So these 31 pairs are not a single type. There are types of these spinal nerves as well. So जो 31 है 31 को डिवाइड किया गया है into 8 cervical, then it is divided into 12 pairs of thoracic, then it is divided into 5 pairs of lumbar, then there are 5 pairs of sacral and 1 pair of coccygeal nerve. So here we can see the different types of spinal nerve. That brings us to the calculation of 31 pairs of spinal nerves. So all these nerves are going to leave from the vertebral column. So vertebral column ke andar, there is spinal cord, and because it is leaving from the spinal cord through the intervertebral foramina, you are going to call them the spinal nerves. Now these spinal nerves all are going to be of the mixed type. That means they are going to have the sensory as well as the motor responses, and these are going to divide into 3 or 4 branches, and the term for branches we here use is rami. So rami is nothing but branches of these, या बोल सकते गुच्छा है ये nerves का, and these are about 4 types of rami. So the first one is going to be the posterior or the dorsal branch. Next is the anterior or the ventral branch. The third is the meningeal or the recurrent branch, and the last one is the visceral or the ramus communicans. So here you can see the extra details of it, but just for the namesake, here are the 4 different kinds of spinal nerves that come and form a rami. The next we see is the main spinal nerves are going to be coming from the anterior or the ventral branches of the spinal nerves. So just for the name to understand what are these anterior or the ventral branches, we saw the rest of the 3 branches or rami as well, right? So from this anterior ones, there are going to be formation of plexus. Now what is this plexus? Plexus, you can understand it is a branching network. यानी जैसे बहुत सारे डोरे एक साथ आके बैठे हुए हैं. There are many threads coming all together and forming a network, and this is a network of either you can say of vessels, so it might be related to your circulatory system, or it can also be coming under the nervous system if it is a network of the nerves. So plexus here are going to be as the cervical plexus. Cervical plexus है, you might have revised about the chapter of locomotion and movement, wherein we had seen that the vertebral column is going to have 5 divisions. So cervical region hota hai, then there is going to be thoracic region, the lumbar region, the sacral and the coccygeal region of the vertebral column. So just corresponding to those, the place of this plexus is going to determine its name. So cervical region of the vertebral column के पास में अगर ये plexus है, that is if this branching network is nearby the cervical vertebrae, then it is going to be the cervical plexus. So cervical plexus में गुच्छा बनाने के लिए you need 2 components. So the first component of the cervical plexus comes from the first 4 cervical spinal nerves, and the second component comes from the phaeric nerve. So similarly, all these plexus are going to have their first and the second component. So, and they will also have some place wherein they go and innervate. That means they supply their impulses. So cervical plexus, as the region it is near the neck and the diaphragm. So वहाँ पे कौन काम करेगा? Cervical plexus is going to send signals. So next is the brachial plexus, which is going to be region around the chest and arms. The lumbar plexus is going to be nearby the legs. So legs में जो भी nerve supply होगी, that will be from the lumbar plexus. Sacral plexus is going to be at the hip joint and the part of pelvis, and coccygeal plexus is going to be the skin around the pelvis. So that becomes the part of the plexus, that is the branching network. The next we see are the different disorders, or you can say different types of injuries that can happen to these nerves. So we must have not thought about कि nerves को तो कैसे injury होगी, but some case either there is an accident or something happens and the nerves are getting damaged. So once the nerve are damaged, there are going to be different kinds of symptoms that the people can see. So first one of those that you can remember is the wrist drop. So अगर wrist drop है, that means you can see up here in the image the wrist drop. You can see how the hand droops down. Now why does this happen? Wrist drop happens because of the injury to the brachial plexus. So brachial plexus, we have seen what is it. So it is going to be the injury that is going to have a symptom or a visual impact onto the wrist drop. The foot drop is also one of the case that can be seen wherein the person is going to be seen like उसको पैर उठाने में difficulty हो रही है. So the foot part is not being lifted, and even if the person is having foot drop, you can see once he is walking or he is trying to move around, वो अपना पैर जो फुट ड्रॉप है वो फुट पार्ट को he will drag onto the ground. He will not be able to lift like a normal man. He will drag it onto the ground, and that can be one of the symptoms, or you can say one of the signs that will help you to understand that the person has either gone through the injury in the sciatic nerve. So you can see here different images that will help you to understand the different nerve injuries. So here is one of the injuries that can also occur in the median nerve injury, that is the bishop's hand. One of the things that we discussed was the wrist drop. There can be also a claw hand because of the ulnar nerve injury, and there can be foot drop as discussed, that the person will not be able to lift his foot, and then the brace is needed to be placed कि जो foot drop हो चुका है उसको support मिले and the person can walk normally. So this is very important that the nerves do not get damaged, because nerves, if they are damaged, then they can have a permanent damage onto the body part. So these are some of the things that you can know about the nerve injuries. The next we see is the divisions of the peripheral nervous system. So peripheral nervous system में we had seen that there are many nerves. So nerves के types or nerve fibers के type we understood. But further, these are also divided as the entire system, that the somatic neural system, and the second one is the autonomic nervous system. Somatic neural system is going to be the place or the neural system part of PNS, which is going to relay the impulses from the CNS to the skeletal systems of the body. So जो भी signals process होने के बाद skeletal muscles तक पहुंचाने हैं, that will be done by the part of somatic neural system. So here you are dealing with the skeletal muscles of the body. Now once you see about the autonomic neural system, you will understand the difference, what is their function in that. So जो signals पहुंचाने हैं from CNS to the skeletal muscle, that is done by the somatic. So somatic, you can see somatic is the word for the cells. So what cells you are saying about the muscle cells that is going to be responsible over here. The next one is the difference that comes, that this is going to consist of the efferent nerve fiber, as the term E is going to be for exit, and these are going to be regulating impulses that will be sent to the skeletal muscles of the body. Autonomic neural system में there are going to be impulses coming from the CNS to go to the involuntary organs. They can be going to the smooth muscles, and they can be going to the glands as well. So autonomic है, autonomic you can remember it as it is the automatic, you can remember it as automatic है, यानी you have no control over that particular substance. So no control, that means no control. What are such areas wherein you don't have your control? It is not under your wish. These are going to be the involuntary organs, the smooth muscles and the glands. अब glands को नहीं बोल सकते हो कि बस अभी you don't secrete anything. That is not under your wish. So the things which are not under your wish, that are going to be controlled by the autonomic nervous system. And whatever is under your control, that is going to come under the somatic nervous system, because somatic is going to be having skeletal muscles. So skeletal muscles are present in your hands and legs. You can move them according to your wish. According to your control, you can have that. So that is somatic nervous system, and what is under not control, that is autonomic neural system. The next we see in detail about the autonomic neural system, which is also shortened as the ANS. ANS को भी आप दो हिस्सों में divide कर सकते हो, that is going to be the sympathetic neural system and the parasympathetic neural system. So as we had discussed earlier, that autonomic neural system is the part जो supply करता है to the body parts which are not under your control. So if they are not under your control, these need to have both kind of systems. यानी उनको accelerate करने के लिए भी you need some system, and to bring back to the normal you also need something. So that is going to be the case with the help of sympathetic and the parasympathetic neural system. So sympathetic neural system जो होता है, it is going to be represented by a chain of 21 parasympathetic ganglia, which are going to be on the either side of the spinal cord. Now these 21 parasympathetic ganglia are going to have preganglionic sympathetic fibers coming from the spinal cord. So you can imagine how this thing is going to happen. This is your spinal cord. Spinal cord, say there are going to be some preganglionic fibers coming. These preganglionic fibers will come and constitute one preganglionic sympathetic fiber. एक बड़ी सी प्री गैंग्लियोनिक सिंपैथेटिक फाइबर बनाई जाएगी, and this pre-ganglionic sympathetic fiber is going to form the thoracic lumbar outflow because of the region that it is coming from the thoracic and the lumbar region of the vertebral column. So because of the location, you call that name. Now once this is going to be formed, there is going to be synapse with the neurons of the sympathetic ganglia. Now after that, after the preganglionic sympathetic fibers, there is going to be a ganglia with, that is, many neurons are going to come and sit together, and that is going to be the sympathetic ganglia. The sympathetic ganglia is now going to terminate different fibers. बहुत सारे fibers जाएंगे, and these fibers are going to go where? These will go onto the different viscera, or you can say different important organs of your body, and they will supply different sort of impulses. So that is the sympathetic neural system. सबसे पहले spinal cord से there are going to be preganglionic sympathetic fibers. These fibers will be coming together and forming a sympathetic ganglia. There will be synapse, and now after that they will be again having postganglionic fibers. These postganglionic fibers are going to go and terminate onto the viscera. Now whatever we had seen, that these neurons need to communicate with each other as well. So एक न्यूरॉन से दूसरे न्यूरॉन तक बात करने के लिए you need neurotransmitters, and in the sympathetic neural system you have the neurotransmitter, that is adrenaline, also called as noradrenaline. So both are nothing but the same thing. Adrenaline and noradrenaline is the neurotransmitter for the sympathetic neural system, and this adrenaline or noradrenaline is majorly used for exciting a particular organ, यानी accelerating substances के लिए, or you can say accelerating चीजों के लिए you are going to have the sympathetic neural system, majority of it. Now the second part is the parasympathetic neural system, which is going to constitute of the preganglionic parasympathetic fibers, parasympathetic ganglia, as well as the postganglionic parasympathetic fibers. Now what is the difference over here? The preganglionic parasympathetic fibers are going to exit from the different different cranial nerves, that is 3, 7, 9 and 10. So we have seen the different names of cranial nerves, so you can relate to that. And also the second, third and fourth sacral nerves, which comes under the spinal nerves part. So since cranial and spinal nerves or the sacral nerves are involved, they are going to form and combine an outflow that is called as craniosacral outflow. This craniosacral outflow, after going to the ganglion, there are going to be emerging of the postganglionic parasympathetic fibers, and these postganglionic fibers are going to supply to the viscera. Now, what is the neurotransmitter that is helping for the communication between the neurons? It is going to be the acetylcholine. So previously we had adrenaline, or also called as noradrenaline. Here we are going to have acetylcholine. This acetylcholine is majorly for the inhibition purposes. So inhibition, or you can say bringing back to normal. Okay, bringing back to normal is going to be the function of the parasympathetic nervous system. So parasympathetic, you can remember about, that is majorly for inhibition or bringing back to the normal state. Or sympathetic जो होगा, it is for the excitation purposes. Now, what is going to be the different reactions for the signal that is coming from the sympathetic or the parasympathetic system? So pupils को अगर हमने देखा तो pupils को अगर sympathetic system में अगर function किया है, then it is going to be dilation of the pupils. Dilation है यानी अगर pupils का normal size, if it was this size, the dilation is going to occur, that is pupil is going to become much more larger in size. Okay, it will grow and it will dilate, bigger it will happen. Whereas in the parasympathetic system, there is going to be constriction of the pupil. Constriction है यानी वो और बहुत ज़्यादा छोटा हो जाएगा. So that is the difference that occurs because of the signals coming from sympathetic or the parasympathetic system. The heart is going to increase its heartbeat, यानी हार्ट बहुत जोर जोर से धड़कने लगेगा. डर लगने पे क्या होता है? डर लगने पे heartbeat increase होती है. That is because of the sympathetic system. Whereas the parasympathetic system is going to slow down the heartbeat. It will bring back to the normal or also slow down it a bit. Then the airways, that is whatever are your airway tubing, all those tubing are going to dilate, यानी वो बड़े बड़े हो जाएंगे. Whereas in the parasympathetic, they will become smaller, and parasympathetic में constriction होता है when there is going to be allergies. So allergies के condition में जो you see that during asthma, you say that the bronchial tubes have constricted. That is because of the parasympathetic nervous system. Digestive tracts में क्या impact आएगा? The sympathetic is going to slow down peristalsis and the parasympathetic system is going to increase peristalsis. Uterus में changes, vaginal contractions are going to be increasing, whereas the relaxation will be for the parasympathetic. As well as you can see the differences for the urinary system, the salivary glands, the liver, then the sweat glands and erector pili. So here one of the important things that you are going to see is going to be for the sweat glands and the erector pili. Sweat glands को sympathetic nervous system supply करता है to stimulate the secretion, and the erector pili is going to be for the erection of the hair, that is जो goose bumps आते हैं और गूस बम्स के टाइम पे जो बाल ऊपर उठ जाते हैं, that is because of this erector pili. So that is the cause of sympathetic nervous system. But why the parasympathetic system is kept blank? The kept blank because there is going to be nerve fibers that do not travel onto the dorsal and the ventral rami. So rami we have discussed, there are going to be 4 different kinds of rami of the spinal nerves. So parasympathetic nerve fibers जो होते हैं, they do not arise from the dorsal or the ventral rami. They come from the anterior ones. So because of that, the whatever effect is going to be coming onto the skin, that is the erector pili or the sweat glands, this is not going to have any parasympathetic innervations. Any parasympathetic nerve impulses will not be received by these particular parts, that is the sweat glands, erector pili, and the skin. So because of that, whatever the changes happens because of the parasympathetic systems onto the sweat gland and erector pili are kept blank. So why these are blank? The reason has been discussed over here below. So you should know about that as well. So one thing that you can think about, that sympathetic systems जो भी function कर रहा है या parasympathetic system जो भी function कर रहा है, there is some kind of similarity that you can think of. The thinking is going to be that the sympathetic system is going to be related to the case of flight or fight. यानी जब भी आपको झगड़ना है या वहां से भाग जाना है, whatever is going to be needed is going to be given by the sympathetic nervous system. That is, you can say it is under stress conditions. So S and S, that is sympathetic and stress, is going to come together. So stress conditions में what will happen? Something, if you are fighting or if you want to run away, आपके पीछे कुत्ता पड़ा है, बहुत तेज दांत दिखा के भाग रहा है आपके पीछे, what is going to happen? Your pupils are going to dilate ताकि बहुत ज्यादा लाइट आए, you can see to larger distances. आपको डर लग रहा है, your heartbeat is going to increase. Your airways are dilating because you need more and more oxygen. The digestive tract is going to slow down peristalsis because उस टाइम पे आपको food digest नहीं करना है. You are at a condition wherein you need to run away from that place. So all this is going to be, related that sympathetic nervous system is going to work under stress conditions. Whereas the opposite case for the parasympathetic nervous system is going to be what? Parasympathetic condition ये सोचता है that we are going to undergo peace. That is P for parasympathetic, P for peace. हमको शांति चाहिए, हम व्हाइट फ्लैग लहराने वालों में से है. We are believers of rest and digest. What are we believers of? We are believers of rest and digest. We are going to have a very smooth life. यानी हम pupils को constrict करके रखेंगे सोने के टाइम पे. Why do we need more light to enter? You don't need much light, so pupils will be constricted. The heartbeat is going to be slowed down because you are resting. The constriction of the bronchial tubules, because once you are resting, you don't need much oxygen. So constriction, that is making sense one by one to you now. Peristalsis increase होगा because digestion हो रहा है, so swollen movement should be increased. There is going to be relaxation of all the muscles. There is going to be increased salivation because digestion is going to occur. The liver is going to be working onto its full speed. So this way you can understand whatever the changes are happening because of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic systems. So sympathetic, S is for stress, parasympathetic for peace, that is rest and digest. So I hope because of this little mnemonic that will help you to understand the different functions that happens because of these parts of system from the autonomic nervous system. Not to forget, sympathetic or parasympathetic are the parts of autonomic nervous system, and autonomic nervous system is a part of peripheral nervous system. So that was all for the part of peripheral nervous system. I hope with all these different kinds of flowcharts and the diagrams that help you to understand about this part of nervous system. With the next part of central nervous system, we will be coming back very soon. Till the next time we meet back again, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and we will come back with one more amazing video that will help you to understand the rest of the part of this chapter. Till then, bye bye everyone. Thank you. Happy bye bye.